everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can use Tim Holtz Distress Markers with a watercolor brush or just a water brush and get a watercolor look on your stamped images. So I'm starting out with this stamp from the Greeting Farm. This is the Chelsea stamp. I'm using archival jet black ink from Ranger, and I'm just stamping it on some Simons Says Stamp watercolor paper. You can use a regular cardstock for this, but since I'm going to be layering quite a bit of water on this one image, I thought it'd be best to use watercolor paper. It's the most forgiving for any type of watercoloring, so I really would recommend using a watercolor paper. So I'm using a clean water brush with water inside it, and I'm just wetting the area of her face. I've discovered that the easiest way to get really soft blended colors with these distress markers is to first wet the paper. So I just went over her entire face, and now I'm going in with a light color. This is Tattered Rose, and it ended up being a little bit too light, so I'll actually go in with a darker color here in a minute. But I did want to show you that I started coloring directly on the wet area of her face right after I started doing it. So then I decided to bring in some dried marigold, and it's going to look super, super orange and bright when I first put it on. But you have to remember that as you add water, it's going to dilute the color, and it's going to blend out, and it's going to give a really pretty flesh tone. It's going to be really, really nice. This is similar to how I color Copic images, where I add the color to the darkest areas first and then blend out. It's a similar technique. You're going to apply the marker color in the areas where you want it darkest and then add water to kind of blend it in. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. And now I'm going in with worn lipstick and adding a little bit of a blush to her cheeks. And the paper is still wet, so as I add that on, it's already going to start feathering out from her cheeks. I'm just going to add a little bit more water to get that moving. And it gives her a really, really pretty glow. So after I did her face, I moved on to her hair, and I used 3 different colors for her hair. I used brushed corduroy, walnut stain, and vintage photo. Before I went on to the hair, I made sure that her face was dry. I didn't want any of the color bleeding into her face. And I also went over the entire area of her hair with the water brush. That's just to help get all the ink moving once I start applying it. So I just went all over the entire area of her hair. And then first I went in with a dark color. I think this is brushed corduroy, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's brushed corduroy. I'm adding the darkest color to the areas that would be the darkest. Similar to when you're Copic coloring and your stamped image, you want to have a little bit of a glare on the hair. So you're going to have the lightest area kind of at the curve of her head. So I brought in those 2 colors, and then I'm bringing in the water with my water brush, and it's just going to start mixing those colors together. Now, as I started putting this on, I noticed that her hair was almost getting a little bit of a greenish tinge to it, and it was because of the different colors I'd used. So in a minute here, I'm going to start bringing in some vintage photo, and that's going to bring in some brown reddish tones. It's really going to tone down that kind of greenish look and give her a nice brunette color to her hair. So I added the darker areas of her hair and then went in with the water brush. So I'm going to move on and keep blending in these colors together. The thing that's really cool about these distress markers is that even after you've moved away from an area and you're kind of satisfied with it, if you need to, you can go back, and if you add more water, it'll get the colors moving again. So it's a really fun way to add really soft color, but you can also get some really intense colors too. So here I am bringing in some vintage photo. That's going to really give it a brown tone. I think if I would have just done her hair all in vintage photo, I think that would have been really, really pretty. But I do really love the effect that all 3 of these colors gave her hair. It's very multi-dimensional, and it gives it a nice shading effect. So after I applied that marker, I just brought in my water brush again, get all that moving. Now for this demonstration, I'm keeping really inside the lines on this image. You could go outside the lines if you want and then cut out the image. And in fact, before I'm done coloring, I'll be using the corner to clean off my brush. So I painted her skirt and also her legs and her hands. And I'm going in with, let's see, this is the color Fired Brick. And I wanted to show you how you can get a really intense color. The more marker you add, the more intense of a color you'll get. So I'm using a pretty intense red color. And when I start adding the water, you won't see it so much on her arm, but when I move on to her torso, you'll really see how intense that color can be. So that's pretty much the image. I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like in better lighting. So I have a photo for you here at the end of what it looks like. So those are Tim Holtz Distress Markers. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.